Hey guys, welcome back, it's Ripe again. In today's video, my homeowner association imprisoned me in my own home and created an illegal police force to extort residents of the neighborhood, including me. They ended up welding my door shut and kept me under house arrest until I gave them the money. I was afraid that they might end up killing me. Here is what happened. Hey Reddit, just a quick background information, this story did not take place in a Western country, but instead in China. With that out of the way, let me start like this. So I used to live in China, and the area I lived in had a very bad HOA that used fear and intimidation to do anything they wanted. The worst part of it all was that half of the time they would force us to agree to new rules that nobody wanted and made life even worse. Things included putting funds towards projects that would only benefit the people in charge instead of the community as a whole. One of the things they made us agree to was an HOA police force that would enforce their horrible rules and bylaws. These guys were basically bullies that would wander around the neighborhood harassing people for the smallest things. They would give out fines for people to pay, but they went way beyond that sometimes. I've heard stories of people in the neighborhood getting beaten up by these HOA police officers if they told them no. I tended to stay out of the radar and not get into any trouble with the HOA or their fake police force. Well, until one day, that is when the HOA really tried to push their luck. So, like everybody else, I paid a fee each month for the HOA that was not an option. Honestly, I think most of the money was stolen by the people running the HOA, and adding in their police, it felt more like buying protection from a gang than anything else. I guess they wanted more money, and since raising the monthly dues was one of the few things they could not control, they tried to attempt extortion. I'm the kind of person that makes just enough to get by and lives paycheck to paycheck. I don't have a ton of extra money to throw around having fun or buying myself nice things. That meant when the HOA police came to my house demanding more money, I could not comply even if I wanted to. I explained that I paid my monthly dues and I was not gonna have any more money until I got paid at the end of the month. I guess they didn't believe me or did not like my answer because they gave me a warning. They told me that if I did not give them my money, they were gonna make sure that I could not get to work. I did not have anything for them, and when they left I was scared about what they would do. It turns out their revenge was to weld my front door shut and basically imprison me inside of my own home. All of the windows were welded shut as well, except for a small one I couldn't fit through, no matter how hard I would have tried. It was through this window that they kept telling me to pay them or they were never gonna let me out of the house. I told them that I would find a way to break out of the house, and the first thing I would do was go to the real police. They told me that they were always outside the house, and the minute I tried to escape, they were gonna kill me. Honestly, I was terrified and I couldn't do anything except wait for my paycheck to come and give the HOA what they wanted. I had food and water luckily, but I was too scared to do anything else. They made it so that I could not use a phone and call the police or even my job, so I knew I was gonna be fired for seeming like I just wasn't showing up. 5 days later, I got my paycheck and told the HOA that I had the money now and to let me out, and I would give it to them. They demanded more for making them wait, and I was scared of being killed, so I just gave them what they wanted. I knew it meant I would not be able to afford rent or food, but again, I did not have a choice. I wanted to right away go to the police and tell them what happened to me and how the HOA fake police trapped me inside of my own house. They predicted something along those lines would go through my mind though, so they made sure to threaten me if I went to the police and said anything. Instead, what I did was find a lawyer that was willing to help me sue the HOA for welding my door shut and for extorting me for my money. My thought was if I could get the HOA shut down, I would be fine. What I did not think of was how the HOA would react to hearing that they were getting sued. Their fake police came to my house one night and pointed guns at my face. They told me that if I was to show up to that lawsuit, I was not gonna live until the end of that day. I knew that they had to pay, but I couldn't handle the stress of my life constantly being threatened. Adding in losing my job because of them and fear of what they would do, I could not give them the money the next time they came around. I gave my lawyer all the information I had, including a sworn statement of what the HOA was doing. After that, I told him I was not gonna be at the trial because I feared for my life and I had to leave. My options were limited, but I had a cousin in Singapore that was willing to let me live with him until I could get a job. I sold my house as quickly as possible, not caring about how much money I got or even the unfair and probably illegal HOA cut that was taken out of it. I could not hide that I was moving from them, but I could at least keep where I was going a secret. When I settled into Singapore, I was relaxed for the first time in months and finally felt safe. I never knew that something like an HOA could spiral so out of control and basically become a gang organization that preys on the people living within it. I never left a forwarding address, so I was not able to get contacted by anybody in China like my lawyer. I have no idea what happened to the HOA and if the information I gave was enough for police to get involved and the people running it to get arrested. For me, it just was not safe enough to stick around and find out. Instead, I am now living in my own home in Singapore with a new job. I never want to go back and see what happened or if anybody is waiting or looking to take up the threat to kill me. As far as I knew, that HOA police never actually killed a person before, but I was not willing to risk being the first. I can only hope that karma will catch up and punish both the fake police and the people running the HOA. Update to the story: one of my old neighbors from China, who was also a victim of the HOA's tyranny, came forward and exposed the illegal practices of the HOA. The neighbor had been collecting evidence of their wrongdoings for months and finally had enough to take them to court. The HOA officials were charged with extortion, abuse of power, and illegal imprisonment. They went to a trial and were found guilty, sentenced to several years in prison. The neighborhood was finally free from that tyranny and the people were able to live peacefully without fear of harassment and intimidation from the HOA police. The HOA was then officially disbanded and their assets were seized and distributed among the community to make amends for their wrongdoings. The news of the HOA downfall spread quickly and became a symbol of hope for other communities that were facing similar issues. People came forward with their own stories and some even took their HOAs to court following the example set by my brave neighbor. The impact of their bravery was far-reaching and inspired many to fight against corrupt organizations that were taking advantage of people. I was happy to hear of the HOA's downfall and it brought me a sense of closure. I was proud of my old neighbor for standing up for what was right and making a difference in the lives of so many people. The HOA had caused me so much pain and suffering, but their downfall brought me a sense of justice. I'll always be grateful to my neighbor for their bravery and for giving me the opportunity to move on from that dark chapter in my life. And the next one is titled Malicious Compliance. So I volunteered with a non-profit service club for almost 2 decades. We had a fundraiser, a legally licensed gambling in our country that would gross 1.5 million per year. There were only a dozen members, so we didn't do much except hang out, volunteer for other charities and redonate the money with a big presentation check. In 2019, we fired one of the 2 employees for our fundraiser. I agreed to work for 3 months as a contractor at $25 per hour until they found a replacement. I found ways to improve the fundraiser and turned 1.5 mil in annual sales into $8 million after only 9 months. Then the virus pandemic hit and I revamped everything again to get us to $15 million annual sales, $10 million net profit in 6 months. I was working my butt off, putting in 50 to 60 hour work weeks sometimes. The club was pressuring me to submit an invoice as I hadn't been paid the entire time. I was not motivated to charge anything since my original intent was to work for free for 3 months, but finally submitted a discounted invoice for $52K for the past 15 months after we all agreed that I'd been working too long and they dropped the ball in their intention to hire a replacement. They paid but freaked out on me and accused me of greed, fraud, incompetence, etc., a combination of their behavior and them being greedy, pushing for massive donations that would get them ahead in their professions, spending money on fancy gala dinners and golf tournaments with the rich elite of the community, etc. And I was frustrated and pissed beyond belief. I stuck around and sometimes got guilted by members into staying after multiple attempts to quit. For another year out of loyalty to my staff, almost 24 at that point, and the charities I was involved with for decades. But I finally broke and walked away at the end of 2021, so here is where the malicious compliance comes in. Before leaving, I was implementing a 2-part plan for another revamp of the fundraiser to keep up with the huge sales and prizes. Each part had benefits and consequences individually, so they had to be implemented together to balance each other out. The first part took a long time to plan before I left, and once it was ready, it was easy to put the second part in action right away. I reported what I was doing to the club and they accused me of being incompetent once again for not understanding the consequences of the second part of the plan. They did not understand the big picture, but I was tired of arguing with them. I implemented the first part as they had approved because everything was already changed over and impossible to revert back. I did not try to convince them at all about the second part being necessary and left them to deal with the consequences after quitting. A year later they are accusing me of sabotaging them and not explaining the need for the second part. The fundraiser had fallen apart this past year with less than $2 million in sales, but still with massive expenses as well as a half-assed revamped system bleeding money. They have reportedly lost money this year and have no idea what went wrong. I deleted all my documents and plans when I returned the work laptop to them, also as malicious compliance because they asked for it in original condition and ready for someone new to use. And by the way, Ripe Stars, if you enjoy malicious compliance stories, then please post some star emojis in the comments to show your support. Thank you so much in advance. Anyway, the next one is titled Petty Revenge. So many years ago when I was 18, I worked by myself midnight to 8 in the morning at a 7-Eleven in a suburban community of San Diego. At the time, there were a handful of cops who worked graveyard shifts and they would come in and out through the night for coffee. My boss told me to give them free coffee because it didn't hurt to have people seeing cops there on a regular basis. One night on my way in, I was heading to a nearby Noggles, that's how long ago this was, for a burrito to take to work. I was riding my motorcycle and got pulled over by a cop. He walks up and it's not one of the dudes I know, tells me he pulled me over because my taillight is too dim and not street legal. I tell him that I am aware of this because I got a fix-it ticket earlier in the week for the exact same thing and I plan to take care of it that weekend as soon as I got paid. I showed him the fix-it ticket so that he knew I was not feeding him a line of crap. He proceeds to write me another fix-it ticket for the exact same thing, even though I assured him I was getting it fixed that weekend to satisfy the previous ticket. He finished up ticketing me and I was now late and I didn't get my burrito. So I got on my motorcycle to drive to work and he stops me and tells me I cannot drive it. I point to the 7-Eleven, which is a couple of blocks away and visible, and I ask him if I can just drive it there since I'm already late and by the time I get off in the morning it will be daylight. But he tells me no, and so I have to push it with him following me all the way. Needless to say, I was pretty pissed about the whole thing. Later that night, some of the cops I know come in, I tell them the story and they just shake their heads and tell me that dude is new to the area and has a stick up his butt. Some more nights go by and they come in and the stick up his butt guy is with them. They say hi and stick up his butt dude tries to be cool and chit chat, but I'm not having it. The dude deprived me of a burrito. They all grab their coffee and say bye, start heading out the door. So I say, excuse me, to stick up his ass guy, your coffee is 50 cents. Yeah, was really long ago. He looks shocked. The other dudes are laughing. He sheepishly comes back to the counter and pays up as I let the other guys go without paying. Yeah, petty as hell, I know. And yeah, Ripe Stars, if you've ever gotten petty revenge on anyone, please let me know in the comments because I would love to hear those stories since I really enjoy petty revenge. Either way, the next one is titled Revenge on Stupid Ex. When I was at university, I started dating this guy. At first he was wonderful. He was dedicated to his studies, fun to be around, attentive and always surprising me with things, working hard at his job, etc. But then, bit by bit, things unraveled. He started skipping classes. Then he barely bothered to go at all, and worse still, he never helped around the house. Never washed up, cleaned up, did laundry, just nothing. He was even fired from his job for too many no-shows. All he wanted to do was sit at home and play Xbox or browse the message boards and forums. This was in the days before social media, when dinosaurs roamed the earth. This left me having to pick up extra shifts, sometimes double and triple shifts, all the while going to class and studying. I later learned that this was a pattern for him. He'd be really dedicated to whatever he set his heart on, but then get bored and fall back into old habits. Then he would find a new passion and rinse and repeat. I knew I should have ended the relationship much sooner, but I held out hope that he would snap out of it, that maybe it was just exam stress getting to him. I desperately wanted things to go back to how they were, but it was not meant to be. I caught him cheating and threw him out. I was so stressed with everything that it was not until the next day that our joint savings account crossed my mind. There was a little over £5,000 in there, and bar a few hundred from him, the rest was my money that I had saved. I checked the account and it was all gone. My ex had cleaned out the account and moved into a new flat with his side chick. I then called the bank. There was simply nothing they could do. He was authorized on the account officially. I contacted the police and they told me there was nothing they could do since it was a joint account, so nothing criminal had happened. They suggested taking it to civil court but said it would probably spend more money than I got back in legal fees, so it likely wasn't worth it. My ex simply had stolen £5,000 and there was nothing I could do about it. I felt like such an idiot. I got even angrier when I saw his posts on various forums boasting about his new game consoles, new games, new TVs and gadgets, all bought with my money. I'm not usually a vengeful person, petty on occasion, sure, but I've never wanted to exact revenge as much as I did right then and there. And I knew just how to do it. While I was a student, I temped every summer to help pay for my studies. One such job had been for a debt collection agency. The work was as crappy as you can imagine, but it paid really well and it was only for a few months. My ex had been dodging debt for many years and he was very proud of that fact. He was also proud of the fact that his debt was close to being statute barred and hadn't paid a penny. For those of you who don't know, in the UK creditors have about 6 years to collect a debt and then it becomes statute barred. That means the money is still owed, but creditors have no legal way to enforce payment, such as using bailiffs. My ex was a few months away from reaching statute barred status. However, what a lot of people don't know is that making a payment on that debt resets the clock. If you pay any amount, then that 6 years starts from scratch. Previously, I had used my insider knowledge to help him dodge the debt, and now I would use it to hit him where it hurt. By the end of our relationship, I was handling everything, including his debts. I had the paperwork, so I knew who he owed and how much. I called his creditors up, I was honest and said I was a friend calling to make a payment on his behalf. I did not pretend to be him because that would be a big legal no-no. They were not allowed to disclose any details, but they were able to take payment. I paid the minimum I could on each debt, about £1 on most, but one had a minimum payment of £1.50 and it was the best £8.50 I've ever spent. I also made sure to give them his new address and contact details as well as his parents' address. Having worked in the business, I knew they would not change the address since I wasn't the account holder, but they would note it. They had various systems where they could search for his name against that address and see if anything came up. If they got a hit, they would change the address. The trap was set. All I had to do was wait. So a few months rolled by and then it happened. His posts on the forums went from boasting about his new gaming PC to panic about a court date. He called me and begged for advice. I told him to F off. Seeing I wouldn't help, he asked for advice in the forums. One of his online friends told him not to turn up to court. That way, supposedly, they would not be able to prosecute without him there. It was terrible advice that was 100% untrue. In fact, not showing up is one of the worst things you can do, especially in civil court, so this was getting better and better. So the court date came and went. My ex naturally did not go. A few weeks later, my ex posted photos of his empty flat. Bailiffs had cleaned him out and taken every last one of his shiny new gadgets and toys. On top of that, he ended up with several CCJs, county court judgments. These are a big deal and can seriously damage your credit history, making it hard to get bank accounts outside of basic ones, near impossible to get credit, including getting a mortgage, and it can also make it hard to rent a place since many landlords don't like renting to people with CCJs as they are considered high risk. He also won't be able to find jobs in the financial sector. Now that he was broke and did not have nice things, his side chick left him. I never got my £5,000 back, but it felt good to see everything he bought with his ill-gotten gains got taken away. I hope that £5,000 was worth it. And by the way, for anyone wondering how a student accrued 6 years of debt, he started at the university I attended when he was 25. He had initially gone to a different university at 18, but dropped out at 19 and went into the world of work. Then he convinced his parents to fund a business degree. He wanted to become an entrepreneur. And for anyone worried about the age gap, I deferred my uni start date by a few years so I could travel. I was 22 when we started dating. And he was 26. And with this, we have reached the end of the video. However, if you cannot get enough of my content, then please don't forget to check out my endless playlist, which has thousands of videos and hours of content. In addition, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on the bell to not miss any of my daily uploads. Thank you so much, and I will see you again tomorrow.